Hello and welcome to the Little Blessed Homeschool YouTube channel. My name is Jenna and I am a homeschool mom of two girls, Lily, who is 9 and in the 4th grade, and Lucy, who is 4 and in preschool. So in today's video, I wanted to talk a little bit about the 5 things that I wish that I had done or wish I had known about before we started our homeschool journey. So for those of you that just joining us, we started our homeschool journey 3 years ago. And yes, we did start it during the COVID pandemic that was going on in our country. We did virtual learning through the public school system and it just wasn't working for us. And so we switched over to homeschooling, which ended up being the best decision that I think we've ever made as a family. And now it has become the most important decision that we ever made as a family. And I'm so thrilled that it was what worked for us. COVID was not the main reason that we chose to homeschool, although it was the factor that pushed us into it further. And so my kids, well, my oldest, she was in daycare when she was little until kindergarten, and then she did kindergarten in the public school system and then half of 1st grade, and then COVID hit, and she's been homeschooled ever since. And so our first year of homeschooling did happen with the 2020-2021 school year, and it was a hot mess. There's a lot of things that I look back on now that I wish I would have known before we started our homeschool journey. I wish that maybe we had done a little bit better. And so I'm hoping with these things that if you're a new homeschool mom, that you can maybe learn from my mistakes, I guess you would say, and incorporate some of this into your homeschool. So the number one thing that I wish we had actually done is called deschooling. Not unschooling. Unschooling is a whole different thing. Deschooling is mostly for parents and kids that went to the public school system. So I grew up in public schools. My husband grew up in public schools. And my oldest, who was the only one being homeschooled at the time, went to public school for 1.5 years. And the deschooling process is where you basically get yourself out of the public school mindset and into the homeschooling mindset. Now, I had heard of this process a little bit before we had started, but I didn't take time to do it really. I kind of just threw us into homeschooling, and I didn't really I basically modeled our first year of homeschooling after public school. And later I realized that the reason we homeschool is because we didn't like the public school. We didn't like how they did things. So why are we now modeling our homeschool after the public school? It didn't make any sense. And I wish that before I had started homeschooling, I really deschooled a lot longer. During this process, some things that you can do to deschool is not really rush everything. Maybe start off slow. I mean, if you just start off with math or language arts for like the first couple of months and that's all you do, that's okay. It's your homeschool. Your kids are not going to be behind just because you only did math or just because you only did language arts for the first couple of months. Like, ease your way into it. I wish we would have stayed in the deschooling process for the whole year. Like I said, I knew kind of it. And so I did it for maybe like 2 weeks. But then I just kind of threw us in. And I feel that my daughter would have benefited a lot more by maybe getting more into a homeschool groove than modeling our homeschool year after the public schools, which is we just left the public schools. So I wish we would have done that deschooling process a little bit more. The number 2 thing that I wish that I would have done our first year, which again was during the COVID shutdown, lockdown, so it was a little more difficult for us, but I wish that I would have connected with a lot more homeschool families. So when we started our homeschooling journey, I knew 2 families that homeschooled at this point that I knew sort of well. We're new to North Carolina, and COVID hit almost exactly a year after we had moved to North Carolina. So I didn't know a ton of people yet. The only people I knew who homeschooled was my next door neighbor and another mom that I had met through a mom's group. My next door neighbor, though, she was done homeschooling. Her kids were grown. Her last one graduated right before COVID, I believe. And so, but she had homeschooled her kids since they were little. So, I mean, I did get some advice from her, but her kids are grown, so mine are little, and so it was a little different. And then another family that I did know, I wasn't quite good friends with them yet. Now we are. Now we're good friends, but I wasn't friends really with this family yet, so we didn't hang out with them. So our first year, I did feel very isolated in our decision to homeschool because I didn't have a community. We didn't have a co-op. We didn't have a homeschool group. And I'm going to tell you right now, it was very lonely. It was a very lonely year. And there was a lot of times that I felt like maybe this isn't what I should be doing, because I feel like my kids are just home and alone all the time. And so that I wish that I would have connected more. Now, at the time, I had just recently left Facebook. I'm not a fan of Facebook. Mentally, my mental health over everything that was going on in the world that year really took a toll on me. So I actually deleted my Facebook. I was on Instagram, but I only was I only had a personal Instagram. Oh, and my business Instagram, but that was like business related everything. So my personal one, I only have my immediate family and very close friends from Colorado. So it wasn't like I had a whole bunch of, groups that I was following. I don't know. So I wasn't on Facebook. So I didn't even connect with homeschool families because I wasn't on Facebook. There was no groups that I could, go to. Eventually, I'm still not on Facebook, but my husband is. And so he joined a bunch of groups for me, homeschooling groups, and I've connected with people. And now, and going into our third year, we have a huge homeschool community that we belong to. My kids have so many friends, and we go to a homeschool co-op, and we are joining a new homeschool group this year that is meeting for the first time. Well, first time this year. They've been a homeschool group for a long time, but their first meeting is next Friday, and I'm super excited for this new homeschool group. I hope that it's really good for the girls. But the homeschool co-op that we belong to, my youngest one is taking the preschool class, and she has met so many new friends. I'm so excited for how she's doing. And then my older one is taking a bunch of classes with mostly friends she met last year. But I'm really excited for that group as well because my girls have made a lot of friends. I've made a lot of mom friends, which is great. And it's just great to be part of a homeschool community. So even if you don't do a co-op or a homeschool group, I mean, maybe you could get together with a bunch of homeschool moms in your area and form your own little, like maybe mom group or maybe homeschool group where you go to the park once a week or whatever, or you do something like once a month with these people. I mean, it's doing it alone is very lonely, and take it from me because the first year we did do it alone, but it wasn't because we couldn't. I mean, most of the co-ops that I looked up were closed because everything was shut down. And then the co-op that we go to now actually was closed the first semester, and then they opened for the spring, but they only opened to families that had gone there before. They didn't let anyone new in until the following year. So this is actually our second year at the co-op, and I just love it. It's just a great group of people. So number 3 is a big one for me. I wish I would have done this a lot more in our first year, but stop stressing about unplanned days. So I am a huge planner. I have a planner for everything. I have a homeschool planner. I have a monthly planner for myself. I plan out our homeschool week by week. I used to do it month to month, but I was crossing out a lot. So now I do it week to week, and I still cross out, but not as much. And I used to stress out so bad if like my plan for the week was like derailed for some reason. And so one thing, I homeschool my kids, but I also run a small business out of my home. I sell soy candles, wax melts, skincare, room sprays, all kind of stuff like that. And I launched my business 1 month prior to the whole world shutting down in 2020. And I thought it was going to hurt my business, and I was really stressed out about it at first. Plus, I was also brand new to homeschooling. So I was new to homeschooling, just launched this new business, and then the whole world shut down. It was just crazy time for me. And my business actually thrived because more people were shopping online. And so my business exploded, especially during the year last year, 2021, I exploded. And so one thing that really got to me was I was new to homeschooling, and I wasn't new to business owning. I have done business entrepreneurship for a very long time, but I was new to this new business, this candle business. And I was so stressed out because sometimes I would have way too many orders. I had to homeschool my kids. I had to sit down and homeschool them. I had to package all these orders, get them out by 4:30. And it was very stressful for me. And there were some days where I would just say, okay, listen, I know this is horrible, but we don't have time to do all of the subjects. We just need to do math and language arts today. And I would lay awake at night going, am I hurting my kids? Should I not do this? Should I, it was a very stressful time. So one thing that I wish I would have done is just not let myself get so stressed over it, and just realize that unplanned days happen. They happen, and you can't control them. And the reason you homeschool is for the flexibility. So one thing I had to do was, because I had to get a lot of orders to the post office by 4, I started homeschooling in the evenings. And so I would work all during the day and then make dinner. And then after dinner, I would then homeschool my kids. And when I first started doing this, I thought in my brain that I was doing a huge disservice because I wasn't homeschooling my kids in the morning. And then I thought about it for a second, and I was like, I need to step back. And the reason that we homeschool is for the flexibility. And it doesn't matter if we get up at 8 in the morning and homeschool, or if we homeschool at 5 in the afternoon or the evening. It doesn't matter. As long as the schoolwork is getting done, why does it matter what time of day we're doing it? And so it took me a year to fully get that out of my head. Like even now, we do not wake up and homeschool and start school right at 8 in the morning. Sometimes, and I'm not going to lie, we don't even start until after lunch. And the reason is because I have a lot going on. My husband has a lot going on. And my kids they don't need the structure as much as I thought that they did, if that makes sense. So I just always thought that they needed a full structure. Like, you have to do this at a certain time. And that's just not true. Kids do need structure, and they do need things, but now we don't have a homeschool schedule. We have a homeschool routine. So we always do homeschool in a certain order, but we never do it at the same time every single day. Some days I schedule eye doctors or doctor's appointments or dentist appointments in the morning, and then we homeschool in the afternoon. Or sometimes we go to a play date or to the park in the mornings, and we homeschool in the evenings. Or sometimes we have something to do after lunch, so we get up early and we homeschool in the mornings. Basically, you need to stop stressing so much about you have to get up at 8 a.m. or 7 a.m. every single day and get your day started. There are so many homeschool families that I have talked to that some of them don't even start their homeschooling until the evening. I read a story, so I don't know this person, but I read a story on Instagram about a homeschool family that lives on a farm. They work a farm in the mornings, and that's when they do all of their morning chores. They don't even start homeschooling until after dinner. And I just think, when I read that, I was just like, so it's not just, you can homeschool whenever you want. You don't need to do it at a certain time during the day just because that's when the public school kids do it, or that's when private schools do it, or that's when traditional school does it. You homeschool for the flexibility of homeschooling your kids. So really, you can do it whenever you want, and it's okay. And it took me a year to actually get that mentality into my brain. And now I feel like a huge weight has lifted off my shoulder because I no longer feel like we have to get homeschool done in the morning. Now sometimes I have really slow weeks in my business, and we're up every day by 8 a.m. and school is done by noon. Some weeks I get really busy in my business. I get a lot of orders, and sometimes I work until 1 or 2 in the morning. And so I sleep a little bit later, and then maybe we eat a big breakfast and then we do homeschool. So I had to stop stressing about the schedule and the time and do it more as like a routine instead. So the number 4 thing was really hard for me the first year is to have patience, and remember that, well, for elementary, because that's where my kids are, grades don't matter, like grade levels don't matter. So yes, my daughter, when we started homeschool, was in the 2nd grade and she was doing 2nd grade stuff. But there's a few times where I have had to take her back to lower levels, reteach her some stuff, and then get her up to level that she is now. And writing is one of those examples. She is not the best at the whole writing thing, and I tried out a couple of things, and then I decided to, you know what? Let's go back to basics. And I found a curriculum where you don't do it by grade level, you do it by level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, stuff like that. And so I started her way down at level 1. We worked our way up to where she currently is, and she's in the grade 4, but we didn't do all of the subjects for her grade. So for 2nd grade and 3rd grade, we some subjects she was ahead of her grade level, and some subjects she was below her grade level. And it used to, the first year I was like, it kind of scared me. I'm like, well, man, I was like, she's not really like at her grade level. And I felt really bad about it. I have to remember too that she did go to a public school and she did, learn from another teacher. But I would always have like, I don't know how to explain it. Like I would always feel stressed out, I guess, that she wasn't writing at a 3rd grade level. She was writing at like a 1st grade level. And so I had to give myself more patience. There were a lot of times in the first year when my daughter didn't understand something, and I didn't understand why she didn't understand it. And my patience would be wearing thin with her because I didn't understand why she didn't understand this. Like, you're supposed to be in the 2nd grade. Why don't you understand 2nd grade work? And one thing that really got to me is another homeschool mom said to me is that you teach the child the way that they learn. You don't teach the child to learn through the curriculum. So basically what she meant by that is you teach your child the way that they learn. You don't fit the child to a certain curriculum. You fit the curriculum for your child. And that really stuck with me after the first year. And so going further, like this 4th grade year, she struggles with writing and spelling. It is probably her biggest struggle. And we were doing a full language arts from The Good and the Beautiful. We were doing all of their stuff. But she wasn't really getting enough out of it because she was at different levels in writing than she was at spelling and different levels. So this year, I mixed and matched everything. So we got grammar from somewhere else. We got spelling from another curriculum. We got writing from another curriculum. I think everything in her language arts, the reading, the writing, the spelling, the grammar, are all from different curriculum sources, and they're all different levels. Like her grammar, I started her with level 1 because I felt that that's the best way to do her writing and her grammar. Spelling, I got the level 4 book, but I think maybe I should have gone down. We're going to see how it goes. We've only done the first week so far, so we're going to see how it goes. And I might nix the spelling and move her down to level 3, which actually brings me into number 5, things that I wish I would have known or done. And one of those things is sticking with a curriculum just because you bought it. That was hard for me. So the first year that we did homeschooling, I bought an all-in-one curriculum that came with the math, the language arts, the spelling, like everything all in one. And like the math worked for her. She did really well, but the language arts part was horrible. But it cost a lot of money, this whole all-in-one curriculum. And I used it for the whole first semester because I was like, man, I spent like a lot of money, we'll just say, on this curriculum, and I do not want to switch it because it cost me a lot of money and she needs to just figure it out. And so I ended up switching it because it ended up after, like, right before Christmas break, it just wasn't working. She wasn't getting it. She wasn't understanding it. It was going in one ear and out the other. She wasn't engaged. And so then that's when I discovered The Good and the Beautiful. And I discovered, because they have the language arts is free and you can print out the PDFs online. And then the math PDFs are also available online. So I printed out a couple lessons and I gave them to her to see if maybe those would work. And she responded to them so well that I ended up buying math for the rest of the year, and we got ourselves caught up. And so she did second grade math with The Good and the Beautiful, and then she did the second grade language arts. And then in third grade, because which was last year, she responded so well, I did it again, and she did amazing. And so the first year of homeschooling is going to take some getting used to. It's going to take time to figure out how your child learns. And that goes back to my number one point, the deschooling process. Part of that process is to sit down with your child and figure out how they learn the best. How do they learn math? Do they learn by, counting in their head, or do they learn by using their fingers? Do they learn by using manipulatives? Like, how is the best way that they learn? Are they a hands-on learner or are they a visual learner? And you don't really know that process because your kids have been in the public school system and you're not the one that has been teaching them. So it takes a little bit to get to know how your child learns. I'm going to tell you, it took me about a year. Once I figured out that my daughter is a visual learner, she has to see it before she can do it. She can't do things in her head as well. When I figured that out, then I figured out which curriculum was best for visual learners. And so, like I said, going back to the deschooling, that whole year, I wish I would have spent the entire year figuring out how she learns and figuring out what would be best for her. I wish that I tried different curriculums to figure that out. And the second year, I switched our curriculum quite a bit as well, which was last year, because I figured, she learned better this way. She likes different subjects better than other subjects. And so getting to know your child and how they learn and how they process information is the best way to figure out what curriculum will fit best with your child. And just because you've bought one curriculum, I know they're expensive, but just because you bought it, if your child's not responding to it, it's going to make it that much difficult to continue the homeschool process. Homeschooling can be so much fun and just an all-around great experience, as long as you figure out exactly how to make it that way for your specific child. And, the public school system, traditional school, is really so education is not a one size fits all. Every single child learns differently, but the public school system likes to say all the kids should learn the same and all the kids should have the same ability. And that's just not true. And so with homeschooling, I feel that these kids are getting a better education because not only are they learning from one-on-one from their parent who loves them and is patient with them and knows everything about them, but they're learning the way that they learn best. And I know my daughter struggled in the public schools with reading, and she actually was she was a struggling reader in the beginning. And since we started homeschooling, I have just seen such a huge difference in the way that she hates to read. She hates it. But she has gotten so much better since she was in public school system because I worked with her. I found out, what works best for her with reading. When we do readings, we read together instead of just having her read the whole thing. Sometimes we read the whole thing together. Like, She reads most of it, but sometimes she wants to take breaks. So I'm like, okay, I'll read a paragraph. And I read a paragraph. And I just feel like that has helped us tremendously get her reading. And I mean, she was reading a book this week. We were reading it together, and we kind of switched off like on pages. Like she would read a page and then I would read a page. And I noticed that I didn't have to help her with hardly any words. She just got it. And I was just like, yes, finally. Like she gets it. She knows how to read. She's good at reading. She just hates to read. Like she just hates it. And you know, it is what it is. So anyway, so those are my 5 things that I wish I would have done or wish I would have known before we started our first year. And again, number 1, deschooling. Take your time to deschool. Number 2, make sure you connect with homeschool families. Make sure you find your people. Make sure, you find a homeschool group or a homeschool co-op or a mom's group that you all homeschool, so you all are in this huge community together. Number 3, stop stressing out about unplanned days. Things happen. I mean, you could get sick for a couple days, and if you're stressing out like, oh my gosh, I don't feel good and I got to teach my kids because we got to stick to a schedule, we got to be on time, just stop. I mean, the whole reason you homeschool is for the freedom of it anyway. So just give yourself more grace, give yourself more time to take those unplanned days off and get back into your groove when you're ready to get back into your groove. Number 4 is to have more patience, and that grade levels don't matter in homeschooling. Just because your child is 9 and should be in the 4th grade doesn't mean mentally they are there. It doesn't mean academically they are there. And that's okay. They're not going to not graduate when they're older because in their elementary school years, they were doing 3rd grade instead of 4th grade when they were supposed to be in 5th grade. Don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. Your kid will get there. They will get everywhere. And number 5, nothing is set in stone. The reason we homeschool is for the freedom. And just because you bought a curriculum or just because you decided this is the year we're doing this, it doesn't work out, it's okay. It's okay. Just change it. Just make the changes. And it's okay to make those changes. And it's okay to say, you know what, this isn't working. Let's start over. Let's figure this out. It's okay. It's okay to do all of that. So those are the 5 things that I hope that you guys can look at your first year of homeschooling and realize as well. Hopefully that this video helped you realize some of those things. If you like my videos, go ahead and subscribe. You can comment below. I try to answer all the comments in a timely manner. You can also follow us on Instagram at Little Blessed Homeschool, and I post a lot of videos and a lot of pictures of our homeschool days over there. I'm not on Facebook, but I am on Instagram and I am here on YouTube. So those are the 2 ways to connect with me. So thank you so much for watching. I hope that all of you have an amazing homeschool year. If you've already started or if you're getting ready to start, I hope that it's everything that you had hoped that it would be. So again, thanks for watching.